Welcome back to The Explainer. You know, whenever you watch a courtroom drama, have you ever really stopped to wonder how a judge or a jury actually decides who's telling the truth? Well, today, we're going to get right into the heart of that process, and we'll be using the Thai criminal justice system as our guide. I mean, think about it. Someone's entire future, their freedom, it all just hangs in the balance. So how does a court possibly sift through what can be a mountain of information to land on a decision that's actually just? It's really not about how much evidence you have, it's all about the quality, how it's weighed, how it's balanced, and ultimately how it points toward the truth. So in the Thai legal system, there's a specific phrase for this, การชั่งน้ำหนักพยานหลักฐาน, which basically translates to the weight of evidence. And here's the best way to think about it. Admissibility, well, that's just about getting the evidence through the courtroom door in the first place. But weighing it, that's about putting it on the scales and deciding just how heavy it is, how much it should really impact that final verdict. Okay, so that leads to the obvious question, right? Who's the one making these huge decisions? Who actually gets to hold those scales and say, this is a fact and this is not? That person or group of people is called the trier of fact. It sounds super formal, I know, but you can just think of them as the official truth detective for the case. Their whole job is to listen to everything, look at all the evidence, and figure out what really happened. And this is where things get really interesting, because different systems approach this in completely different ways. In Thailand, your truth detectives are professional judges who rely on years and years of legal training. But then you look at a system like the one in the US, and it's a jury of regular citizens bringing their collective life experiences to the table. It's a really fundamental choice. Do you lean on legal expertise, or do you lean on collective common sense? All right, so we know who decides, but now for the how. Is there some kind of strict rule book they have to follow for every piece of evidence? Like, this testimony is worth 10 points, this document is worth 20? Well, the reality is way more interesting than that. The system actually hands judges an incredibly powerful tool, their own judgment. This is all guided by something called the principle of free appreciation of evidence. And what that means essentially is that it unshackles them from some rigid formula and trusts them to use their own intellect and reason. Yeah, this isn't some video game where each piece of evidence has a preset value. It's a huge responsibility. Judges have to weigh everything using their own logic and reason to actually form a conviction about what the truth is. And as the slide says, the key phrase here is that it all has to be consistent with reason. But, and this is a really big but, this freedom is not a free-for-all. It's not based on a judge's personal whim or what they had for breakfast. This freedom, this discretion, is carefully contained inside a strict framework of rules, the rules of proof, that make sure every single decision is fair and grounded in the law. And this whole framework really rests on two pillars that are absolutely critical to get right. People mix them up all the time, but they actually answer two very different, very important questions at the heart of any case. And this slide just breaks it down perfectly. First, you've got the burden of proof. That answers a simple question. Who has to do the proving? In a criminal case, that is always the prosecution. The person accused is presumed innocent. Okay, then you have the standard of proof, which answers a different question. How much proof is needed? Just how convincing does the prosecution's story have to be? And that brings us to maybe the most important question in any trial. What's the level of certainty you need to reach before you can declare someone guilty and potentially take away their freedom? How sure is sure? Well, the law is smart about this. It recognizes that not all disputes are created equal. As you can see here, the standard of proof isn't just one point. It's more like a ladder. And the more serious the consequences are, the higher up that ladder the prosecution has to climb. So down at the bottom rung, usually for civil cases about things like money or contracts, you have the balance of probabilities. All the evidence has to do is just tip the scales, even just slightly, to one side. Is it more likely than not? That's it. Now, if we climb one rung higher, we get to clear and convincing evidence. This is for more serious civil cases. Here, it's not enough for the scales to just tip. The evidence has to push them down with some real force, creating a pretty firm belief that the claim is true. And then, right at the very top, the summit that is reserved only for criminal cases where someone's liberty is on the line, we have proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, this doesn't mean you have to eliminate all doubt. That's basically impossible. It means you have to eliminate all reasonable doubt. If there's any other logical way to explain the facts, then you haven't met the standard. Period. And look, this isn't just some fancy legal jargon. This is a fundamental shield for every single one of us. It reflects a core value of our society, that it is far, far worse to convict an innocent person than to let a guilty person go free. This standard is the ultimate firewall against the immense power of the state. So, when you put it all together, you've got the expert judge, the freedom to use reason, and this incredibly high bar for proof, you start to see the real architecture of justice. It's a system that's been carefully built to be methodical, to be rational, and above all, to protect the individual. It's the bedrock of a fair society. But in the end, this is a system built by humans, striving for an almost divine ideal, absolute truth. It's this complex, amazing machine of principles and safeguards, but it still leaves us with a pretty deep question to ponder. Even with the best system in the world, can we ever be 100% certain that justice has truly been done?